Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest challenges facing cities, developers, and working families across America: affordable housing. Not theoretical affordable housing, not political talking points, not another conversation about why things are broken. We're talking about real-world solutions that are actually getting projects financed and built. Our guest today is Hanneke van Deursen, Director of Housing Finance for the City of Chattanooga, Tennessee, one of the minds behind an innovative affordable housing pilot program that is gaining national attention for helping mixed-income housing projects become financially feasible without relying entirely on massive public subsidies. With a background in architecture, research, housing finance, and policy design, Hanneke is helping rethink how cities work with developers instead of against them. Today, we're going to unpack why affordable housing projects often fail financially, how Chattanooga redesigned its pilot tax incentive program, why transparency changed the political conversation, how developers are using these incentives, whether modular and off-site construction can accelerate affordability, and what other cities across America can learn from Chattanooga. This is a conversation every developer, city official, builder, investor, and housing advocate should hear. So stay tuned. We're going to bring Hanneke on right after a few short words from our supporting members. Brought to you by Greatech, developers of the complete light gauge steel and wood framing software for Revit StruxSoft. Off-site, modular, or prefabricated, StruxSoft Framer turns Revit into a powerful manufacturing tool, automating every step of the DFMA process from design to final delivery. StruxSoft doesn't just work with Revit, it transforms it. Jumpstart your designs at StruxSoftSolutions.com. Hanneke Ltd. has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and producing innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the United States and the world. Check out their machine buyer's guide for off-site modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Go to their website, HannekeLtd.com. When the delivery can't fail, standard transportation isn't enough. Oversized, time-critical, high-risk, specialized transportation supports advanced projects nationwide. From data centers to the delivery and set of homes and offices. With more than 60 years of experience, we've transported over 60,000 projects, served more than 200 U.S. cities, and logged over 70 million miles. When failure isn't an option, choose the leader in specialized transportation. All right. Again, thank you to all of our supporting members that help us keep this show going and keep it live, keep it real, and keep it unedited. That's right, unedited. Nobody tells us who to have on or what to say or what to do. We're just here to share the information with you so you can all build it better. Thank you to all of the supporting members in the ticker below. And as always, if you would like to be on the Dave Cooper Live Show, right here, you can register to be a guest. Just click that link with your phone, the QR code, sign up. We'll take a look at it. We'll have a conversation. And if it's a good fit for the show and you're doing something better, then we want to hear all about it. All right. So without further ado, let's hop into the show. Let's bring Hanneke onto the show. Hanneke, how are you today?
Hey, I'm doing well.
Awesome to have you here. And I'm going to say it right, Hanneke Van Deursen. I said Dorsen, I think, during the intro.
It's Hanneke van Deursen.
Yeah, got it. Hanneke van Deursen. I'm going to get it right, and I'll be speaking all different kinds of languages before the show's over. Hanneke, before we get into this and before we get into the pilot program that you helped create and write for the city of Chattanooga, we need to know a little bit more about you. In fact, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we're going to have your family members on, but you only have a minute and a half to do it. The floor is yours.
Minute and a half. All right. Well, hey, everybody. I'm Hanneke. I guess if we're starting from birth, I'm first gen. So my parents moved from the Netherlands to the US, and I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. We moved to Rochester, Minnesota when I was young, but I kind of spent my whole life visiting the Netherlands because the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, they were all there. And so from a young age, I got this exposure to the fact that, like, how your built environment looks and is put together totally affects the life you can live and the choices you have. And so I always sort of wanted to be a part of making that city environment better. And so I thought that's what architects did, went to architecture school. And while I was in architecture school, kind of put it together that architects are one part of a very large ecosystem of people who actually end up making decisions about what gets built. And I realized I wanted to be a little further up that decision tree. Lucky for me, I graduated architecture school in May 2020, just about the best possible time to enter the job market as an architect. So I was in New York for a year. I was unemployed. I was trying to figure out what to do with my life, and did what anyone would do. I applied to grad school. And I thought, well, if I can't be an architect, maybe I'll be an architecture professor. Went to the Harvard Graduate School of Design, and there got exposure to just all the other ways in which the design thinking skill set that you learn as an architect can be applied in a legal context, in a policy context, and got really into affordable housing and sort of encountered how broken our system is in the US, and really just how inefficient it is. I like to build a well-tuned machine. And while I was there, I did some research on the Dutch affordable housing system, going back to kind of my mother country. And they've got a super efficient system. And for me, that totally cracked open this nut of, like, there are other ways to approach this. When I graduated, I had a Bloomberg Harvard City Hall fellowship that placed me in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with a really broad mandate to just work on affordable housing. And luckily, I was met with just about the best possible kind of local government context you can have. It was a small city. They had a kind of acute housing crisis. Things had changed really quickly. And they were ready to do things. There's a lot of political will, and people were not worried to do things for the first time. And that's what brought about the pilot program. That's what brought about a lot of the other initiatives we did. But it's been full send on Chattanooga ever since.
So when you went to your homeland, right? You're first generation here, but your family's from there, and I'm sure you have a ton of family at home as well. How much is built offsite using modular or panelized construction where your family is from versus here? And tell me about the quality differences.
Yeah, basically everything has some component of modular construction. It's not necessarily a Lego kit where everything just gets assembled on site, but you can have a whole bathroom kits that get assembled. And so, when I was doing internships in architecture school, I always wanted to go see my family over the summer. So I did internships over there. And so that was kind of the norm we were building with as I was at architecture firms. And I came back to the US and I'm like, oh, we were out there with hammers and nails putting houses together. I don't really get the difference here. And the build quality is just so much higher, bigger windows, more secure materials. And it's something I haven't yet been able to put together, how the build quality is higher, it's getting done faster, and it's a lower or kind of comparable price point.
Yes. I mean, all through Europe, not just, from your home country. I mean, throughout Europe, it is picking up much faster, quicker. I think the regulations are different, and we talked a little bit about this, right? Where you're from is like the size of Rhode Island, maybe bigger, but we're talking about the United States, which is much larger, and it's a hard problem to solve. When did you start realizing the decisions shaping cities aren't really happening at the architectural level? Like there had to be an aha moment. Like I know you said, well, I just realized I wanted to be higher up the food chain, but higher up the food chain is policy, is financing, incentive, zoning, politics, right? And you don't seem like a politician to me.
I identify as a systems builder, and there are politicians, and yeah, they have skill sets that I do not have, and then they hire people like me to work for them. So someone else sets the vision, and I'm one of the people who figures out how to make it happen. And I mean, that's what we did in Chattanooga. Mayor Kelly had a bold vision for housing. My boss, the first chief housing officer, had a bold vision, and she put someone like me to work to figure out how we were going to make that happen. But yeah, the architecture, it was really just sitting in architecture internships, and I'd be handed the outline of a building by our real estate development team. And they're like, all right, get as many apartments as you can inside that outline. I was like, huh, this isn't like the puzzle that I like to solve. It's a little bit too granular. And then it was really in grad school as I'm sitting in, public policy classes or classes at the law school and realizing that my architectural background and that design thinking approach gave me something to say in those contexts where I was really
Mhm.
nervous to be in a classroom like that. Uh, it gives you a unique perspective and a way to approach, I would say, a really hands-on way of problem solving. And you just get in there and you test and you iterate. And that's something that is not kind of native to policymakers, to the kind of legal crafting, but a really useful additive skill set I've found.
Could you have written a better script for your first job? Really, your first full time job out of school? I mean, working with the mayor and the mayor saying, "Ah, Hanukkah, here's your problem, fix it."
Yeah, it was perfect, and it was totally unexpected. I'll be honest, I did not know what I was gonna do when I graduated, and I was just given an opportunity and saw it was the best thing that I was gonna be able to get and ran with it. But when I took the job, I had to see where Chattanooga was on a map. I really did not know much about the city, and I had no idea what my day-to-day was gonna be
Sure.
like, but just dove in.
So when we think about affordability, we think of Los Angeles, New York City, Chicago, the big cities, right? Where housing costs have exploded. Chattanooga would not have been an area that would have first come to mind. Like you said, you didn't even know where it was on the map, right? What was happening in Chattanooga that forced the city to take a look at this and take action? And when did this happen exactly?
Yeah, honestly, when I look at the data and I see the trends at the, country level and the trend line for Chattanooga, they follow each other exactly. So I like to think that Chattanooga is a sort of snow globe for what's happening in the whole country. And you're right, like we're focusing on the major cities, but the reality is housing markets have shifted in these smaller towns too. Tennessee has been investing heavily in economic development, recruiting companies to Tennessee, selling them on the lower cost of living. And so in Chattanooga, starting around 2015, we start to see some significant job growth. And this is great, right? New jobs bolstering the economy. But we didn't at that time start building houses for those jobs to go to sleep at night. And so fast forward a couple of years, and say that trend kind of started in 2015, around 2019. That's when you're getting the cumulative effects of all those new people moving in. And then COVID happened. And just with interest rates spiking up, and the massive shifts in the labor market and where people wanted to live, Chattanooga's housing crisis just got put in a pressure cooker. And so from before COVID to now, housing prices are up 68% if you want to buy a home. So like
Yeah.
Chattanooga is kind of place where your median household, maybe making $70,000, could afford to buy a house. That's just not a reality anymore. And that happens super quickly.
So it wasn't the lack of houses and development being built. It was just a lack of the affordability development side of this. Is that correct?
Yeah, and honestly, people will talk about housing. It's a market issue, it's a supply and demand issue. And all things considered, Chattanooga's been pretty good at responding to that spike in demand that we saw post-COVID. So there's been a bunch of new construction. And I think that's what really sets us apart from a place like Boston, where like it takes 5 years to get a building permit and there's not that much land available. Chattanooga had a lot of land. Our processes are relatively streamlined. So the market was able to respond. The problem we were seeing is that the units weren't being built at affordable price points. And so there's a bunch of new construction happening, but like our state regulatory context means we can't require the developer to add affordable units into that new construction, and we can't charge them a fee that we can use to build affordable units. So there was no way for uh, existing residents to sort of ride that wave of growth and to get affordability into those areas of the city that were seeing new investment.
So before we jump into the pilot program, and that is the name of it, it's not a pilot, it's the name of the program, and we'll get into the nomenclature of that or nomenclature, or however you say that word. This is making such an impact that you actually won the Ivory Prize as well.
Yeah, we're super excited to be recognized. It's awesome. It's kind of surreal.
Yeah, no. Well, congratulations to you and the team in Chattanooga for that. So, did the pilot program exist before you arrived?
Yeah, and I should clarify because this stuff gets confusing. Pilot program does not mean it's a test program, but it's
Right.
actually an in government, we love acronyms, and it stands for payment in lieu of taxes. And it's a very technical way to talk about property tax discounts. Really, what we're doing is we're giving a developer a discount on their property taxes in exchange for some sort of public benefit. And in our case, it's affordable housing. And yeah, we had a version of the program. There have been a couple of versions over the years. The first one was just a economic development tool to get housing built downtown. We didn't have any housing in the downtown area, so to incentivize that investment, we offered property tax discounts just for any housing development downtown. After a couple of years, it worked really well. We got new buildings built, and we didn't need to give that incentive anymore to get people to build downtown. So then we started adding affordability requirements. I think at first it was 20 at 80% AMI, and then 50 at 80% AMI. And that's just a way we kind of peg price points in the affordable housing world. The AMI number, it's the median income for an area, and the federal government updates those numbers every year. So it's a really easy way for us to talk about those different price points and let them adjust over time. Um,
Yeah.
so
So
when I
it's the area median income that is set through, I guess, data from across the country in your area particularly.
Yeah, exactly. They look at our metropolitan area, so a little bit of Georgia and some of the region around Chattanooga, and look at the median income. So if you have everybody in that area lined up in order of income, the person standing in the middle, how much does that household make?
So this program already existed. What was broken with it that you and your team came in and solved?
Yeah, so the tool was working really well for what it was designed for, which was to be one more thing to help an affordable housing development along. These days in the US, to get an affordable housing development built, and I'll call it like capital A affordable housing, where there's a bunch of public subsidy, we got the low income housing tax credit, maybe some home funds, all these kind of government acronyms come in. Those projects tend to need a lot of different sources of capital and subsidy that they're layering together to actually be able to build the building. And our tax discount was one of those subsidies. So by lowering your kind of annual cost for running the building, by charging less property taxes, they were able to build the building on narrower financing margins.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it worked okay for that, but we were seeing all this new market rate development happening, and we had no way to ride that wave as a city. And so the pilot was one of our only tools. And, in the policy world, they'll talk about carrots and sticks. So sticks are like the rules you make that force people to do things. And then carrots are the incentives you use to entice them to. And Tennessee is a kind of no sticks environment. So we can't really compel the market or regulate our way out of it, but we can do incentives. So things that make want to provide affordable housing. The problem is usually incentives mean money, and we're a state with the third lowest state and local tax burden. So we don't really have much money as a city, especially compared to like peer cities. And so there wasn't all this extra tax revenue lying around that we could commit to projects. And so the pilot was something the city had been using, this kind of tax discount. And it's a way to kind of space it out over time. Instead of having a bunch of dollars we have to put into a project right now today, we kind of don't collect taxes for the next 15 years on the project, and that's how we're paying for it. So it's not taking money out of what we have now, it's foregoing future money.
Love it. And for everybody watching out there, this isn't just going to be a conversation. We're going to do a show and tell. You're going to share with us kind of a walkthrough on how the program works. We're going to pull up the formulas. So if you're out there and you dig, spreadsheets and data and numbers, this is going to be the show for you. And if you're a politician, a mayor, a senator, I don't care what you are, this is an opportunity for you to learn something and hopefully bring it to your own city, state, government, whatever it is. So pay attention. We're going to have fun with this today. So the formula, right? The formula, from what I understand, and I want to set this up in the right way, is if I'm a developer, right, and I want to build in Chattanooga, there is a calculator that I can use before I even have my financing, my everything in place, that I can use to help me figure it all out, plug it into my system, and I know exactly what the city or the state is going to do to help us build all these and how many units they're going to help us build with. Is that accurate?
Yeah, totally. And maybe this is a good time to pull up the slides I've got to kind of do a quick show and tell of like, what are pilots and why are they helpful for all of this? So I talked about it already, but it's an acronym. It's this payment in lieu of taxes, and really it's a discount on the property taxes. We don't need to get into the legality of how it works, but there's a kind of legal mechanism that our state creates to let us do this. And really why that's helpful, because a development will be financed based on its income and its expenses to get your cash flow. And if you just reduce the rents, that doesn't mean you're going to pay less taxes. It doesn't mean your utilities or your management are going to cost less. So all of a sudden, that scale tips out of balance. And now you can't pay your mortgage, you can't attract any investors to the project. What we're trying to do with a pilot program is reduce your property taxes by the same amount as that lost revenue so that the project's cash flow is the same. And actually, we're trying to make it a little better because it's an incentive program. And so the challenge of doing that is like, how do you figure out what the developer is giving up and what you're going to pay as a public sector? And I think in general, tax incentives, that's the really tricky part. How do you balance the incentive with the public benefit? And
so just to clarify real quick, you're telling me as a government official or somebody that works with the government that you actually sit around a table and you say, how do we actually incentivize and make this better for a builder or developer? Not how can we get more out of them for nothing?
Totally. Well, and I'd say that's like the Tennessee way, right? Because we can't force anyone to that table. So if there's nothing in it for them, they're not coming. But we also don't want to give away all of our tax revenue for one affordable unit. So there's got to be a balance there. And what we realized is our old one size fits all program, there was never going to be a way to strike that balance for every building. And so that's why we went to this formula, and that's why we went to the new approach to try to right size that incentive and create something that can work for any project, no matter which market it's located in.
Wow. I'm impressed so far. I may have
So,
to move to Chattanooga and start building again.
hey, we'd love to have you. So yeah, it sounds simple, but really how we came up with how much we would pay for someone to include an affordable unit is we figured out how much money they'd be giving up, right? What's the rent loss? What's the market rent you would be charging minus the affordable rent that we're going to ask you to charge? And that's how much the developer is giving up. And then we need to make it an incentive. So our participation incentive right now is at 10%, but we can kind of tweak that lever every year. We go back, we look at market conditions, we see where we need to peg it. And that's what we'll pay. So if you're giving up $100 on the unit, we'll pay you 110 for it. And so the developer kind of walks away with that incentive. And what we found is that's really useful, especially in a tight equity market. Right now, it's really hard to attract private investment.
Mhm.
A little boost like that can really help a deal close that's otherwise struggling to find financing.
And it's all open and transparent. There's no behind closed doors, finagling and haggling trying to make these things happen. I mean, it's transparent. So the transparency of it, we were talking, it's become a little bit of a political game changer. Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, and maybe let's pop up the pilot calculator to talk about that because yeah,
Absolutely.
this calculator is available on our website and it's doing that. So that formula we were just looking at, the market rent minus affordable rent plus the incentive, that's baked into this calculator. All a developer needs to do is plug in their zip code, plug in how many units are in the building, what the property's worth now and what they're going to make it worth, kind of what the improvement value is. And that gives them an estimate of where their taxes are going to be at. And I tell them that's your budget to go shopping with. So if your tax liability is going to be $200,000 a year, figure out how many affordable units you want to buy with that. But at the same time, it's really clear what the city is willing to pay for the affordability. And so when we go, the hardest thing about these tax incentive programs is the distance often between what's being incentivized, what the developer is giving up, often will overcorrect. So like our old program, the tax incentive didn't actually pay for the affordability we required, but that was a way of kind of being safe with it. And then we relied on other subsidies to actually come in and pay for it. This is a much more kind of fine-tuned approach, which means we can use it for mixed income developments where it's just like a market rate developer who's looking to make their numbers a little better. They can add in some affordable units, and we see that as a win-win. The city's getting affordable units in a great location, in a great building, and the developer is able to move forward on financing. And I think from the sort of the surprise of doing it this way is that it did make our elected officials feel more comfortable approving projects because they were very clearly able to point to what it was they were investing in. And that can be really difficult with these tax incentive programs.
Sure. And I know you had some more slides left, so I didn't want to cut you short on that. If you want to go back to them, just let me know.
I think we're good on the slides.
Got it. Got it. So, tell me the transition, when you got your first developer, and you finally had a tool for them that they could trust. How has it changed the relationship with the city and the developers? Because this isn't, like you said, it's not a pilot program. It's just the name of the program.
Yeah, we got to get a new name.
What changed for them?
Um, it's really what changed is who came to the table, honestly. So before we would just really be working with our nonprofit affordable housing developers, our low-income housing tax credit developers. And by the way, this still totally works for those partners. No program or design would not also make sure that they're covered because we need to invest in those projects. But all of a sudden, I was also talking to a local developer who's doing a 15-unit renovation and they're interested if they can add some affordability. A developer out of Atlanta that's doing a big, almost 300-unit building that's like, I see how this is a benefit to my project. And suddenly we have the opportunity to get affordable units into locations and into building types that we've never really had the opportunity to get them into in Chattanooga before.
And these are not nonprofit builders, right? These are for-profit developers and builders coming into the city, and some of them are doing luxury, or market rate luxury developers, right?
Yeah, totally. And that's the like lowest common denominator that we built the program to. And then it also works for the affordable housing developers. But yeah, my kind of ideal partner that I was thinking of as I was designing this program. And remember, my task was make this work for mixed income, make this work for our private development partners who are busy building things and doing the thing they're supposed to do, which is responding to new demand. And let's ride that wave and get some affordability into it. So it was really about how can we create a program that's going to work for them. And I tried the kind of standard way first, right? The like, well, maybe it should be 20% of units at 60% AMI or 10% at 50% AMI. That's usually how these programs are. It's like a blanket requirement. And I just realized the numbers weren't going to work for every project. I was either going to way over subsidize the stuff in the weak markets, or I wasn't going to give enough subsidy for the stuff in the strong markets. And by going to this per unit structure, I could do both at the same time.
So you said you had a developer doing close to 300 units. What was your aha moment for yourself? And can you tell us about that project when it actually you were like, oh my God, this works? Because there had to be a moment where you were like sitting on pins and needles, because everybody's watching, to include the mayor. Where you said, hey, wow, this really works. Can you tell us about that project?
Yeah, I mean, luckily we had talked to plenty of developers as we were developing the program, so I had a sense that it was going to work before it really went live. But yeah, when you are building these kind of systems, that first test run is where you learn all the things that still need to be thought about and figured out. And Frank, the developer, likes to joke that he was the pilot of the pilot, and he's not wrong. But these projects still need to be approved one by one with city council. And it was really when we sat down one-on-one to brief the council members and walk them through the calculator. The developer presented the project, and we just saw the like enthusiasm they brought to what was being proposed and to this vision of having a tool to get affordable units into these market rate developments. That made me that was an aha moment. I was like, oh, not only does this make sense kind of economically, and I know it makes sense for his numbers, but it also makes sense politically, and it makes the job of our elected officials easier because they have something they can trust and sort of substantiates what it is that they're investing in.
Yeah. And so this project, how many out of 300 were affordable?
So it was a 278 unit project. 42 units were affordable, which was about 15% of total units. And what's really key for me is 32 of those units are affordable at 60% AMI, which is a level of affordability that you usually only get to with low-income housing tax credits. So we were getting federal subsidy levels of affordability into market rate mixed income projects using only this local tool. And that was pretty exciting.
And without this program, would the project have still happened?
It would have happened eventually, but I don't think they could have closed on their equity in this market with where rates are at and where constructions are at. I think it would have stalled. And that's kind of the key thing with these tax incentives too. It's a way to get projects moving. That site is currently generating $9,000 of property taxes for the city and the county together. It's not a lot of revenue. And even with the tax abatement, there's a little over $400,000 tax abatement. We're still going to be collecting over $300,000 a year in taxes on the property. So we are investing in getting that land into its highest and best use. It's right on the river. It's in a great neighborhood. And we were able to get the project moving when it may have stalled for quite a bit longer, waiting for the market to turn around.
Is this city-owned land, private-owned land, or it doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter. In this case, it's a brownfield site. So it was a former industrial site that they're rehabilitating.
But whether it's my own private land that I purchased, I can still use these incentives in the pilot program.
Yeah, yeah.
Love it. So who really is the benefactor from this type of housing model?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I do describe it as a sort of win-win. I mean, my job is to look out for the public and the public sector and to make sure that we're getting a good deal. Ultimately, everything I do is about serving the residents of Chattanooga and making sure that the way the city grows leaves enough room for everybody to stay there. Um, but the developer benefits too. I mean, it's an incentive program, and that's how we built it. So they have been great partners. You probably saw them in our Ivory Prize video, but they
Yeah.
went a ride on this kind of new program, and will say that like their project could not have happened without this program. So I think we've both won.
So, all right, this is gonna be mind blowing. So, what you're saying is affordability and profitability can actually coexist.
They can. Yeah. I mean, in our case, the city's made a choice to invest, and that's how I see it. The city is investing affordable housing into those properties, and it was my job to figure out at what level we needed to invest to make it happen.
So, in our conversations, you talk about building an entire ecosystem. What does that ecosystem mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. Before I started working for the city, I didn't think I could have told you what it is that cities do to help affordable housing. I had like a loose idea, but especially working at the city, I've come to recognize that like what is expected of local government and then what local government is actually in charge of is a really big gap. And ultimately, our role often comes down to just helping a whole ecosystem of players, funding sources, levels of government work together. So I kind of break it down into the partners, and I see partners as market rate developers. I see it as residents. I see it as community activists. I see it as our nonprofit developers. All those players who have a piece, like the people coming and saying, "Don't build housing here." They're a partner. How do we engage them? How do we educate them? It's like the rules, the regulations. We've made some changes to our building code, make it easier to build kind of 2, 3, 4 unit buildings. It's funding, it's the local dollars, it's the federal dollars. How do we make ourselves more competitive for the federal resources? And so while, our budget, I think this year we've got about $7 million in the budget for affordable housing. It's good because it used to be zero, so we're stepping up. But compared to how much money you need to really get this stuff moving, housing's expensive.
Oh man, yeah.
And so we have programs, we use our dollars well, but we also just do a lot of work to build relationships, make sure people know about our programs, have the resources out there. What are we doing with our city land? Like these are all questions we're asking ourselves to figure out how to mobilize what we have at hand. But ultimately, the
Yep.
big bucks are at the federal level and the state level, and we just do what we can to compete for them.
Yeah, and for those watching out there, we're going to give you links to the website. There'll be a QR code coming up on your screen here shortly as well, so you can go check out this pilot program yourself. And it is not a pilot program; we're just going to have fun with that. Why not? So I think this is a great opportunity for other cities. But let's talk about what mistakes other cities are making when trying to solve this, at least from your own view, because I can't imagine Chattanooga is the same beast as Boston or LA or New York, but there has to be is there a common thread of the mistakes they're making?
Well, I think one thing that can be hard when you work in the public sector, and something that I've really learned over the past few years, is it's not always clear what variable you're solving for. Like, are we trying to make housing as affordable as possible, or are we trying to make it really safe, or are we trying to make it sustainable, or are we trying to pay prevailing wages to the people who build them? People will say we should be doing all of those things. Well, then it gets very expensive, but we also don't have the tax revenue to pay for all that, and people don't really want to pay more taxes. So then there are trade-offs. And I think what's really difficult about working in the public sector is establishing that like public value statement and what it is that we are trying to do specifically with the program, and not kitchen
Mhm.
sink everything on affordable housing to solve all the problems we have.
I could see you being this mega consultant running around city to city helping them fix their problems. That's what I see. Right? Honestly, why not? So, Let's talk about moving forward. You know, you come from your family comes from a region where offsite is kind of the way forward. Do you think industrialized construction can help with not only working with the pilot program, but just in general with affordability?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally, we're at a point right now where what it costs to build a building and what rent you need to charge in order to pay for that construction costs are out of sync with what people can pay for rent. So there are ways to make it cheaper by like cutting some of the red tape or having increased public spending to fill some of that gap. But at the end of the day, we also just need to take a hard look at what it costs to build a building and if it needs to cost that much. Do they need to be as big as they're being built? Do they need to be on properties that are as big? And yeah, if we build the bathroom offsite and crane it in, does that save some money? So I think any sort of innovation that's going to drive down the cost of construction is key to that kind of more large scale way out of this issue.
Have you had any offsite modular panelization companies use the pilot program yet?
Oh, I should ask Frank if he's doing any offsite. Not that I'm aware, not with the pilot program, but we've got this great company called Wind River Built out of
Mhm.
Cleveland, Tennessee, right outside of Chattanooga. And they were the first to be awarded our land bank property. So that's like old tax foreclosed properties that the city has in its inventory that are just sitting vacant. We've put in a ton of work to get those back into productive use, and we actually donate them for someone to build an affordable home on them. And Wind River Built submitted the winning proposal for our first one, and we're super excited. I think Crane Day is coming up soon when they like drop it in. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's been great.
Set day. We call it set
Vision.
day.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's been great to see their vision, and they've been super interested in developing. You know, they started as a luxury kind of tiny home builder, and they have created this whole factory and are really expanding what they're working on. And it's been so fun to talk about to them about the possibilities for a modular, affordable starter home project.
Can you see this actually scaling nationally? Is it a program that can be scaled?
The pilot, yeah, for sure. I mean, the like trade-off is just it is public investment. You do forego tax revenue, so can you afford to do that will be the question. And is that like where you want to dedicate the resources? But the formula that we've developed really is widely applicable, and it's that really basic, like what's the market rent? What's the affordable rent? Make it a little bit better than that. And that's how you can kind of derive that fair exchange for public investment and public benefit. And then
Mhm.
the question political of like, is that where we want to put our public investment?
All right, so I'm the mayor of Dave Cooper City right now. Tell me, I'm watching this and I'm saying, hey, that Dave Cooper live guy, he's pretty cool and he's got some great guests on his show. How does the mayor of Dave Cooper City start? I understand you got to have these, is there money in the budget, dot, dot, dot. But if you're watching this, seeing a city council actually go through this, what would you tell them their first step is for them to get buy-in? Maybe that's the question.
Oh yeah, well, the I guess the good thing about working in affordable housing these days is you don't really need to convince people it's an issue. So a
This
lot
is
of the
true. This is true.
I think we all understand that it's a big issue. Um, you know, tax abatement is a tool that's been kind of elevated at the national level. The federal government's even been floating a kind of reimbursement program, which I think is a great idea to reimburse cities when they give property tax discounts for housing projects. But um, really, step one's going to be like do the legal homework to figure out what's your state specific mechanism. In our case, it's this thing called a pilot. In other cases, there's a state program that gets run. But how are we currently doing property tax discounts and who's doing them? And then how are they determining what you need for the affordability? And really, I started by just like doing some feasibility analysis and figuring out what are we paying for those affordable units and is it consistent across the board. So that would be
Yeah.
my like outline of how to approach the problem.
You know what we need to do? We need to have the mayor come on this show. I was just thinking about that. Let's
Mayor
get the
Kelly?
mayor and get somebody from the Secretary of Housing's office and let's have a real conversation. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd love to. Mayor Kelly's great on a podcast.
Yeah, well, you tee that up and both of you come back on. But I know we have a time issue here. right? Because your next chapter is in Chicago,
It is, yeah.
the Windy City.
My, yeah, yeah.
What? So can you share a little bit about that? Are you allowed?
Um, Not yet, but soon. But really, the long story short is my boyfriend's lived in Boston the whole time I've been in Chattanooga, and I miss him. And we want to live in Chicago, and we signed a lease last month, and it's all happening very quickly. But I'm going to stay in the kind of public sector innovation, affordable housing space, and I mean, honestly, my stance is clearly the system we have now isn't working. There are people out there experimenting with other ways of doing this, and it's happening at the state and local level, these experiments. Ultimately, we need the juice from the federal level to get things really going, but it's really, about every 40 years, there's an opening where we do something different with affordable
Yeah.
housing. It feels like this is one of those openings. So it's an exciting time to be working in this field, and we clearly need to be doing something about it.
Hanneke, is there anything that I missed, left out that you feel super important?
No, I think this has been a great conversation. I hope I was staying out of the weeds a little bit. I do like getting in there.
No, hey, listen, you did great. If you went down the weeds of that spreadsheet, I probably would have fell asleep. Oh, I'm like, so you're in Chattanooga, so you know what a possum is, right? Somebody shows me a spreadsheet, I'm a possum. I roll over and freeze. I'm like, oh God, no. Hanneke, go ahead.
You can find it on our website. It's totally publicly accessible. So go ahead, download it, see what it would mean for your project. And
Yeah. Well, let's put that up there. And I promised that we would also share a widget on that. So I got to go to that widget and I'm going to put that up as well. Or not. I don't know where my widget went, Hanneke.
Dang. Well, Chattanooga, or if you just Google Chattanooga housing pilot, you'll probably get there.
I'll tell you what, I will find it right here. No, they all disappeared. Nope, got it. Look at that. Yeah. Just click that link right over there above Hanneke's shoulder, and that'll take you to their website as well, and check it out. Super, super great stuff. Hanneke, we really do appreciate, having folks like yourself come on the show and everything that you're doing to help us all build it better and change the ever-growing affordability and housing problems that are out there. We can't do it without young minds like yourself, right? I love it that you came out of school and here you already solved your first project. That's got to be a record. I bet there's a Guinness Book of World Record for somebody that's actually making an impact that fast out of college. So I love it.
Well, credit goes to the team I was on and the fact that Chattanooga was ready to move on something. It is a rarity for local government to be okay being the first one. And, in Chattanooga, it's a point of pride. We call it the Chattanooga way, where we have no doing something before.
Well, we appreciate it. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to come right back to you after the end of the show. For the rest of you that are out there, what I appreciated the most about this conversation is it isn't just about theory. This is a real example of a city trying to create tools that actually work in the real world, right? It's a win-win. You get affordable housing, the developer still makes a profit, the city still gets taxes all the way around, and it helps the city grow responsibly. And I love that. And what's the most important factor of all this? That's right. It's the families, it's the firemen, the police officers, the garbage picker-uppers, everybody out there that is in our lives that helps us maintain and do what we do every day. It gives them the ability to live, work, and play in the same area as the people that can afford the most expensive homes. And this whole program started because my kids can't afford a home unless we help them do that. So we're trying to make a true difference out there. So for all of you that are watching this, remember, hey, we'd love to have you support our show. We keep it live. We keep it unedited, and we try and bring you the best information out there. Reach out to us. We'd love to put your name in the ticker down below. It doesn't cost a lot, and we're trying to keep it that way so everybody can be a part of this conversation, especially if you're gaining value from what we are doing. And as always, we'd love to have you on the show. Right up there, QR code. Click it. Fill out the information. fill it out for somebody else. If you know somebody else that's doing something amazing and something great, we'd love to have them on the show as well. All right, everybody, that's a wrap. I'm Dave Cooper. Make sure you subscribe, share this episode. In fact, share all the episodes. And thanks again for watching. We'll see you next week. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.